30% the right number? Are they going to find a different balance where people can make some money, and yet we're not spending all that tax money on subsidies for specific folks? Part of the issue comes, and people, you want to be inflammatory. Here's one: solar has been the purview of the rich, and so the only people that can really use these tax credits are people that have enough income to leverage these tax credits, right? So it can be it can be a conversation where you're basically helping this polarization of wealth thing to exacerbate itself. And what's the right course?
Okay. A mix of renewables that everyone can take advantage of. Okay, well, let's jump over to some more fun conversation. Can we talk about the, oh my goodness, I'm so excited, F-150 electric that's pulling like, I don't know, what is he pulling, a 1 million pound train or something? Have you seen this one?
Yeah, yeah, the F-150. You sent me this photo.
Yay.
I mean, Ford loves to do this every single time they release a new. Look at what our truck can pull. You know, they pull all sorts of stupid stuff. It was what 10 double-decker rail cars, or more than 1,000 feet, loaded with 42 gasoline-fueled F-150s. So it's one electric pickup pulling 42 regular F-150s in these 10 train cars.
This is great.
Absurd.
This is great. You know, the thing that I love about this is you basically...
Sounds like a great job. It's actually somebody's job to think these things up. Geez. What can we pull?
That should so be my job. That should show that I'm born for that job. So look, here's the thing that's neat about this. You have, you know, Rivian. If you just gonna go back to our first show with Rivian, when was that? Like in October or something, Jay, or just after SPI? You know, Rivian was the first pickup truck, the EV pickup truck to be kind of launched. We got those guys at the LA Auto Show before they opened their doors. We had Michael McHale on talking all about this amazing truck. Everyone was super stoked about that. Became the toast of the town across the nation in the, you know, CES, and then in, you know, in all types of renewable conversations, EV conversations. Everyone's in love with the Rivian. You know, Amazon dumps a bunch of money into it. Ford dumps a bunch of money into it. Rivian's future seems to be pretty secure as far as a EV startup can look. And then you have Musk, you know, coming out and saying, hey, we're going to launch our super sci-fi kind of crazy, you know, was it a Blade Runner-esque? Is that what he said? Pickup truck?
I think that one by its styling alone is kind of making itself a niche thing.
And he may be doing that on purpose. This struck me as a thing here. Okay, so it's like because he may be saying, I want, you know, the F-150 is the best selling vehicle in the United States at nearly 1 million
14% of all light vehicle sales in 2018.
Nearly 1 million units sold. Something like 900,000 plus units sold in last year. So, you know, we're talking about a segment that's really important to have, you know, to be a part of. If EVs are going to take a significant chunk out of the overall, you know, ICE or internal combustion engine vehicles, we're going to need to hit that segment. And now you got Rivian, you got Musk out there saying, hey guys, do your darndest. And then we got Ford coming out, and the F-150, I got to tell you, in my mind, I'm sitting here going, 2020, can I make it with my F-150 to 2020 to get that? There's a little bit of brand loyalty
2020 one is a hybrid crossover. It's not an all electric. Those don't come until 2022, according to Ford's press release. However, the cool thing about this one is although it's gas electric hybrid, it runs in that kind of efficient way where it can charge its own batteries, and it will also function as, get it, an electrical generator. So you can go to a work site with this particular truck and plug in, and it's got its generator on board. You don't need to haul an additional generator.
I think I can.
You can just use the one. You can just use the one on the truck.
It's a plug-in electric, right? It'll be a plug-in electric hybrid. Is that right?
Yeah, it does plug in. Yeah, it does do that well.
I can deal with that. I'm not going to trip out about it. You know, the concern that I have, and I was just talking about this on LinkedIn with a couple of friends, when you compare the Rivian and you look at the Rivian at its base price $69,000, and you look at the Tesla truck, which no one knows anything about except for a little glimpse of its hood, and he says it's going to be less than $50,000. Okay, maybe. And then you have the F-150, and you get a sense of what the pricing of the F-150 has been. Maybe it'll be in a certain area. Now, one of the things about Tesla that I have a hard time moving away from Tesla and their specific innovation of battery and motor tech. They're doing very unique things above and beyond their patents that are making these cars awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think they're really sharing the full special sauce. They're kind of giving out the stuff that, enough to get everybody else out there and catalyze that industry going. So I don't know what level. When I look at Rivian, I see a truck that is specifically geared, taking the advantages of level, 4 and 5 autonomous, and gearing it towards adventuring. So it's like thematically very relevant. They're doing super cool stuff in terms of how to use a truck to have more fun. I think that's really neat about Rivian.
If that's what your use case is, sure.
Right. And then you have, Musk out here saying, hey, I'm going to make this kind of sci-fi crazy thing. Okay, well, I'm interested in seeing that, but I kind of feel like he's going to be technically dominant at the end of the day. And then you have Ford. Now, here's the concern I have about a traditional automaker coming in and dominating this marketplace. They tend to make a lot of money on the back end with their maintenance of cars, right? And a Musk model was not meant to be that. So it's like, are we going to see similar kinds of things? Are they? Is it going to be a true long-term 500,000 mile EV like Musk is talking about, or is it going to be more of the same? But you know what I mean? With
planned obsolescence built in, that your motor will fail, so that right after your warranty dies.
Right. That's that's my concern. Okay. All right. What else do you want to cover, Jay? There's some stuff going on here.
We won't know that for another 10 years or 10,000 miles or 100,000. Miles or whatever it is.
Can't wait that long. Hey, we got one of our first retractions here. You want to touch base on this one, Jay? Would you like me to cover it?
No, go right ahead.
Okay, so it's like, yeah. So I get a call in from last week. We covered an article from, let's see, Pacific Business News, I think, Biz Journals, and it said solar PV permits down in Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. Now, the data that's used for this particular article is from Marco Mangelsdorf, a good friend of ours. And I'd called him beforehand, actually, on this particular occurrence to check on some of these points. Couldn't get through. And it turns out that we have an error in some of these numbers. And Marco called me and told me about this. So we had said that based on this article, for Maui County, there were 191 PV permits issued this year compared to 281 in 2018, a drop of 32%. That is incorrect. The correction is in the order of 333 PV permits pulled from January through June, the first 6 months of the year. And it's actually an increase of, I think, about 18%. So pretty big difference there.
Yeah, that's good, and I'm way pleased to hear that I was offended at the time.
About how bad it was.
How bad it is. I mean, we constantly go on and on about how we need to be installing more, how the tax credit's going away, and I couldn't fathom why it was going down. So it makes much more sense that we've seen a modest increase. I'm going to say that again, folks. That if the tax credit goes away, you're going to want your solar install. You need to be able to prove intent by the end of this year. So call your solar professional.
Oh, you mean you're talking about Safe
Harbor? Get some more permits in.
Yeah.
Pardon? to get the federal credit. Yes, you want safe harbors.
Okay, residential safe harbor. That's interesting. All right, let's talk about something else that was kind of a connection here in Hawaii to our previous show. When we were on last week talking with Doug McLeod and Jen Zaro from SEPA and Eddie Park from Interjex, we're talking about Phase 2 RFP.
Talking about the new RFPs. One of the things we said was what?
Well, we said we were concerned about this single point of failure potential in the way these RFPs were written. So if you didn't follow the last show, folks, there's something in the order of like 1 million plus panels going into Oahu, and similar for Maui and Big Island. By my read, we're looking at about 3 million panels across the state. I've been kind of playing with those numbers. Eddie Park actually, after the show, sent me the mark, and he said, don't quote me, but he said basically it could be like north of 1 million panels for Oahu, and I think around 3 million, if I'm not mistaken, for all of. So it's a huge statewide kind of initiative. And, those numbers could be debated. But the bottom line is that we were talking about the way this RFP was issued and about the nature of having these huge utility scale systems deployed that if they go out, that makes a big impact on your grid. Very different from, rooftop that's distributed all around the island. And it turns out that something like that just happened in Kauai and not a couple of days after we had that conversation.
Yeah, right afterwards, there was an island-wide blackout. What ended up happening was that they have a large generator facility that was turned off because they were in the middle of the day. There was a cable issue, and a cloud came by.
Cloud
Well, it
came
wouldn't
out.
cloud. Yeah, I mean, oh no, a cloud. But the cloud stopped enough solar production that they couldn't maintain grid stability, and they couldn't get the generator back online because of the cabling problem. So there was that it's that one single point of failure, that cable or that intermittent resource, the solar, that just couldn't keep up with demand.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that we're going to have to find solutions for that moving forward. So I mean, hey, we have issues with regular conventional generation too that are not so dissimilar. But as we move into
No,
this
I
new
mean,
era,
if this was a generator, if this is one generator transferring from one, I mean, they turn on and turn off generators for maintenance and fueling and all sorts of other stuff all the time. That's kind of their job. But if they had a cable issue there, it could have been from one generator to another. It just so happened that this one of the generators was solar and one was not, and they couldn't transfer over in time because the solar disappeared when a cloud came by. Of course, it's making a lot of noise because of the cloud issue. This highlights one of the real reasons why this 4 hours worth of storage on board of all these new RFP sites is kind of mandatory. So even if the solar is not producing, it can still output energy at its build rate for 4 hours. I mean that makes a lot of sense to me. But on a rainy day or whatever else, we're still going to need something to back these things up.
absolutely, absolutely. So it'll be exciting to see how these types of occurrences impact the RFP and all this new solar and renewable energies that are going to be deployed in the space of the next 5 years here. So hey, let's jump over.
Yeah,
to
we'll have a PUC chair on next week.
That's
That's one of the questions we should ask.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, we got the PUC chairman is has confirmed next week's show, which is going to be great. It will round out a lot of the decision makers in this larger utility scale offering, and it's going to have a lot to say. I'm really excited to hear from him. So about time to go over to our commercial break. We're going to come back with David Sands from Bamboo Living, and then we'll probably have a little bit of time to do a future focus. LG is a leader in the home electronics industry and manufactures some of the most popular PV panels, as well as many other appliances we've come to know and appreciate over the years. The same LG brand offers the LG Chem Resu battery line for your home energy storage needs. Here in Hawaii, their primary model is the LG 10H Resu with 9.3 kilowatt hours of usable capacity. The LG 10H Resu can be used both to maximize consumption of solar energy at home and also functions as a source of backup power in the event that the grid goes down. LG Chem has increased production of their battery line for Hawaii's renewable energy solar market. Contact your local solar provider to learn more about the LG Chem 10H Resu battery.
Sundrum Solar is the manufacturer of a revolutionary thermal collector that fits on the underside of your standard PV panel to maximize energy capture per square foot. The Sundrum Solar Hybrid PVT system, combined photovoltaic and thermal, holds the world record for peak efficiency, capturing an astounding 86% usable energy. Learn how Sundrum Solar vastly improves electric, heating, and cooling economics at sundrumsolar.com.
Pantech Design is ushering the world into a new age of home energy automation through the convergence of smart home technologies and renewable energy management. Unifying solar energy production, intelligent energy storage, and smart breaker technologies with smart home devices, Pantech Design's complete home energy automation suite incorporates unprecedented control of lighting, shades, climate, security, hot water, electric vehicle charging, and many other systems. Contact Pantech today at pantechdesign.com.
Okay, we're back now with Mr. David Sands with Bamboo Living. Thank you so much for calling in today. David, can you hear us okay?
I sure can. Yeah, thank you, Josh. Good to be here.
Well, we really appreciate you making the time. I know you're going through a couple of things out there in the Big Island, so thank you so much for making it fit.
It's a pleasure.
So we're here, David. We're really excited to hear about Bamboo Living. Now, I told you earlier when I first reached out to you through a common friend, I think your brother Rick, that I've been a long-term fan, a long duration fan of Bamboo Living, probably north of for around 7, 8, 9 years or something. I think really when I came out to Hawaii 10 years ago, I was really fascinated by what you were doing. How long have you been in business? What's the background of your organization and what you do?
Sure. Well, I started building bamboo houses 24 years ago, actually, and so the first one we ever did is there on Maui and out on the North Shore, and so it's been quite a process. I think we've done over 500 homes now.
500.
Both in Hawaii and other parts of the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Jay, jump in at any moment here. Jay Vercart is my co-host. He's calling in, but can you hear? Jay's heard me talk about your organization and your designs and your concept for many years. I got to tell you, one of the things that kind of always excited me, I get these kind of like really kind of, maybe they're childish ideas, but I always thought, wouldn't it be neat to plant a bunch of bamboo on a piece of land, come in, and then cut all the bamboo down, mill it, turn it into a house? Would that be the most sustainable approach?
You can't kill the bamboo once you put it
Absolutely.
in there.
It's like grow your own home.
Grow your own home, exactly. You could even grow some furniture with, like, I've seen that where they kind of, structure the furniture around molds and topiary and type of like stuff.
Right.
So that idea has always kind of like struck me as an exciting thing. And now, as we've moved over the last 10 years, we've been in the renewable energy industry. We've been here with our radio show, and it's been an interesting thing thinking about the integration of renewable energies to that sustainability, right? So, is there anything? What are you doing right now with solar and renewables?
Sure. Yeah. So the piece that I've really been stoked by what Hank Rogers has been doing. He was a big force in getting the state to commit to 100% renewables, and he has the Blue Planet Foundation, and he also has Blue Planet Energy, which makes an incredible battery. We've used it. I used it in my own home and in some of our other projects, and it's a type of battery that there's almost no heat output. You can't really feel the heat off of it, and then you can discharge all the way down to zero. And they said they recently did some kind of speeding up the aging process for the batteries, and they think these things might live out 35 plus years. So
absolutely.
I'm stoked about that.
David, Hank has been on the show. A number of his staff have been on the show. Kyle and Lori and who else? A handful of other great people. And we're definitely big fans of the Blue Ion battery system, lithium iron phosphate. Like you said, great longevity, extremely safe. And an organization that's here in Hawaii, right, doing really remarkable things. What strikes me as interesting with your type of designs, and I want to learn more about like kind of the nitty gritty of what you do, but is that you have homes that are, by my estimation, probably inherently more sustainable by the material you're using, right? And then you also have homes that tend to be. I think there's a lot of these homes that we live in throughout Hawaii, they tend to be smaller, but there's a lot going on in the smaller space too, right? Where we can kind of create ADUs and we can create Ohanas and all that wonderful things. But when we do that, our energy needs tend to be less, right? Mm-hmm. So the notion of being able to incorporate this really robust, powerful battery system with PV to something like bamboo, a bamboo structure that maybe it's 1,000 square feet or 500 or 15, but it's a little bit more of a modest, reasonable living scenario rather than some huge palace. We can create like maybe even a net zero scenario. So that's kind of what some of the things that I'm most excited about with this.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Is Angela, who's worked for me for years, they did a TV show on her house, which is just above the minimum that you can get a building code for in terms of a dwelling. Hers was 352 square feet, and just fully off-grid catchment. It's a great project.
That's amazing. And I think there's going to be more and more opportunity to produce homes like that. What occurs to me is when you have a 400 square foot home, and that's kind of like on the larger side for a tiny home when we think of like tinies, as they're being discussed throughout the nation right now. But, you're relatively small square footage, so you're cooling, you're heating, what you're generally doing with electric appliances, it's all a little bit less, right? And then so you don't have to, and like in this case, I think I read the case study or the article that you put out about it. Angela, was it that's her home? And the fact that you're on catchment, and then you have the opportunity you're just cooling, if at all, maybe is there an air conditioning system in the house?
No, there's not. Yeah.
You don't even need it sometimes here, right?
Natural cooling and all of that. Yeah.
So it's very, very doable to think of, creating an off. And is it completely off grid, or is it connect to the electric grid at all?
It's off grid. Yeah, exactly. The grid comes to the edge of her property, but she chose not to tie to it. So, she's completely off grid.
super exciting to be able to think about, that we are at a point where we have the technology to create long-term energy solutions and then really
Exactly.
be net zero. It's crazy. We wouldn't have thought we could have been there years ago when we were tending to, Volkswagen-sized battery banks of lead acid, right? So,
Sure. Yeah, right.
what does it feel like? Let's just double back to, some of this amazing company that you've created. What does it feel like to be inside of the Bamboo home? It's got to feel different.
Well, it's pretty magical. I mean, it's the bamboo in its natural form. So you see in all these beautiful round poles that have beautiful joinery. It's like living inside a piece of furniture.
Wow.
And the bamboo, is a grass, so it has that kind of grassy smell to it, like a fresh cut lawn, and it's just it's a pretty magical. I mean, I get great responses from people that have been clients over the years, and now I'm living in one myself as well, so that's been exciting.
Whoa.
And yeah, and so it was really just the other thing is just waking up every morning feeling good about my decisions. That every acre of bamboo that goes into production, we're saving about 10 acres of trees from being cut.
There we go.
So that's a huge deal.
There we go. And how does that pencil out? So we said 10 acres of, I guess, timber is saved for every acre of bamboo that's being utilized. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah. So what it is that the bamboo is, when you grow trees, you're basically growing them for a certain number of years, and then you're cutting it all down, and you basically knock the carbon sequestration of the land back to close to zero. And with a bamboo is all of that time. Every time you're harvesting every year, and the materials mature in 3 years. So for the 30 or 40 years, and then the plant itself can live to be 50 to 100 years. It's again like it's a grass, so like cutting your lawn. You just keep cutting it.
So, yeah, and I remember, and I think I mentioned to you that when I first came out to Hawaii, I went out to Whispering Winds, which is a bamboo nursery, is that right? Out in Hana or Kipahulu. And then
in Virginia.
Yeah, it was an amazing group of people, really and just a spectacular place. And I remember walking around the kind of bunching bamboo sections, and they were marked, and then there was a harvesting schedule that was somehow indicated on these areas.
It's the color, right? So they mark each when the shoots come up. They mark each the new year with a different color, and so then they're harvesting a particular color each year. And that's the way they do it.
So is that something that you could see scaling up and making a contribution to? I mean, how big do you see? What do you see bamboo going? I mean, where do you see it becoming an integrated building product in the future? For
Sure.
People are talking about hemp these days, right? So it's kind of like of a similar kind of maybe mindset, right?
Yeah. So what we're doing is that we developed a sister company that we just got funding for the first production line to make a dimensional bamboo product, and the goal with that is to really be eventually an alternative to wood, concrete, and steel for construction at a significant scale.
Oh, wow.
So we're in the early stages of it, but the long-term potential is tremendous in terms of the carbon drawdown and reducing deforestation. The concrete and steel have huge footprints, and the bamboo is a carbon uptake mechanism. It's the fastest growing woody plant.
You're leading right into where my mind is going. I'm trying to, because one of the big conversations in the fight against climate change and about greenhouse gases, GHGs, is carbon sequestration. And one of the more recent kind of topics that's getting some play out there in cyberspace, if I can use that old term, is the notion of planting trees. People are talking about this a lot these days. Yeah. Could planting or reforesting or foresting via bamboo, could that make a significant impact, or have you thought about this at all?
Absolutely, and it actually already is. The partners that we're working with on this bamboo dimensional products company are doing exactly that.
No kidding.
It's a reforestation project. So, and the other thing is it has really positive social impacts in terms of creating income and jobs in a agricultural community. So that's been really exciting. I had met with clients the other day that are in the Hawaiian homelands, and we were having discussions about how the potential for having a co-op, here in Hawaii that would, be growing the bamboo and then processing it and creating our own building material for the islands.
Isn't that special? I mean, the idea of being able to, locally produce the products and then mill them or process them without, transport. I mean, and then build them. I mean, that's kind of like the holy grail, right? To be able to have like a sustainable local product that can be a building material quality. I know that was a challenge at one point, getting the bamboo locally to adhere to certain kinds of structural building codes. Am I mistaken there?
Say that one more time.
Were there some challenges at one point along this 24-year arc of yours where it was you had to work with the building codes to get this to be a product that could be a structural product for construction?
Right. It was quite a process. I mean, it was 7 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it approved. But it was worth it. I mean, I call it a 10-year labor of love.
That's amazing. And that's kind of like you need people like you doing that, taking the taking the hard hits. Kind of remind me of the biodiesel groups and all the hard stuff they had gone through over decades, trying to keep that alive, and grow that. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the types of houses that you have. I mean, there are people out there right now. We just had in Maui County, I believe, and throughout the state, these changes to legislation for everything outside of pretty much agricultural land, creating more density. Basically, for a given square footage, assuming you have the parking and the septic and the sewer and the various requirements, the square footage of a piece of property, you could now have 1 or 2 ADUs on it, right? So are you looking at that market, and what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we are. We're working on a project that doing the Maui changing the Ohana rule and things like that. So yeah, we're really trying to keep that moving along, and very interested in being able to help in that regard.
I mean, I think it could be great. There's if you have a plot of land, as I understand it, that's residential or a series of other zonings, but non-agricultural, you could now put not just 1 but 2, sizable ohanas on it. It could really change the game for affordable renting, and having access to just more home options for people, because there's a heck of a housing crisis out here. It'd be nice to see bamboo take its place. Thank you, David, for taking the time to speak with us. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get a chance to spend a little more time with you, learn some more about bamboo living.
I'm looking forward to it, Josh, so much.
Okay, aloha. All right, there was, pull that up there. That was David Sands, and, he did a heck of a job there talking about his basic approach to, creating an amazing solution for ADUs and for new building techniques. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get Jason back on, but we're going to try that again. And one of the things that I think is really exciting here is that we're able to see, here is he. Come on, Jay. Where are you, buddy? We're bringing him on. So one of the things that excited me is that when we're one of our sponsors, we're going to bring Jay on here via, we have a lot of little technical fun things here today. Jay, can you speak up a bit?
I am right here.
There he is. Okay, we're jumping from device to device, and we're doing everything we can to keep this going. But one of the things that I thought was really cool about that interview with David today was that, not only are we talking about sustainable building materials, but now we can start thinking about, smaller spaces and then integrating some really cool tech. He mentioned Hank Rogers, Blue Planet Energy, Blue Ion Systems. I mean, this is really like really dialing in, creating some really amazing kind of places to live.
Yes. Yeah, you keep talking about small spaces. I don't find small spaces all that attractive. but there's a real good case for it. But the coolest thing for me is not transporting the material. If you grow it, machine it, and use it in the same space in the islands, you're saving a tremendous amount of energy just from just shipping it around, which is usually, I don't want to say wasted, but it's usually part of the building process.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. And then, one of the things that like we didn't get a chance to bring up with him, but one of our sponsors, Sundrum Solar, I know that Sundrum has been working on, this is the heat sink technology that extracts waste heat and then moves it into either domestic hot water needs, meaning hot water for your home, or to air conditioning or to heating. And the notion of for me, a smaller space, or at least a more modest space, something like that, PV, battery, and then integrating Sundrum, that is the kind of thing where we could be in a situation where not only are we meeting our own needs, we might even have surplus energy and be able to do something like power an EV. I mean, it's staggering.
Exactly. Well, you can imagine you can get enough energy off the roof. It's already a small construction, so to be able to get, you need to be able to get as much energy as possible, and then something like Sundrum is going to be absolutely necessary.
I mean, imagine if you put in an ADU, right, on your property, and then it's an area for someone to live, long-term rental perhaps, and it comes with its own energy, right? And then you could say, hey, we've got enough energy here on this roof to actually be able to power an EV too. So you could actually really change the way people live and their expenses. Very exciting stuff. So we got a little bit of time here to cover a bit of a future focus. Jay, is there one that you wanted to jump on?
Yeah, absolutely. Last week we didn't really get to this. The Lanai drone project. The article is coming from Maui News, but it's to continue without 5G. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense initially, but they're specifically trying to build an aerial system. These are the guys like Loon, SoftBank, and big aerospace and communication companies are trying to build a network of high altitude drones. So these are unmanned aircraft that'll float around anywhere between 65,000 and 80,000 feet in the air. So well above passenger aircraft. Everybody flies about 35,000, 40,000 feet. But why would they want to do this? Has anybody ever driven across Halimaile Gulch and lost cell connection?
Well, that looks like the reason. Unfortunately, it looks like, Jay, we're going to have to wrap this little future focus here and cover it in our scheduled Lanai show, our Lanai show for the Island Microgrid series in the future. But this is something really cool that's happening here in Maui County. So, hey, folks, this has been the Solar Coaster. We are sponsored by Sundrum Solar, Pantech Design, and LG Chem. It's been a great show with David Sands from Bamboo Living. And we want to wish you a wonderful Aloha Friday and a great weekend ahead.